Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on time zone you are in. So you are all very welcome to this talk on data science startup. My name is Peter Zegen and I'm hosting the startup track of DataFest 2020. For those of you who don't know, DataFest is a conference organized by Open Data Science community that unites 50,000 members worldwide. Today I'm talking to Paul, who is the CEO and the co-founder of Neurolabs. And Neurolabs is the company that focuses on synthetically generated data to help develop object recognition models. Hi, Paul. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Hi, Peter. First of all, thanks for the invitation and thanks for the lovely intro. That was very much spot on with my first two liners. So I think, we can jump right into it. I'm as you mentioned, I'm one of the three co-founders of Neurolabs, where we do synthetic generated data for computer vision, specifically for object detection. That's the one thing that I would add to what you said.
Yep. It will help if you give us some background on yourself and maybe a bit wider describe what Neurolabs does actually and how does it help data scientists and data engineers, etc.
Sure. So at heart, I'm a computer vision engineer. I spent roughly the last 10 years of my life working on algorithms used to recognize objects in images. And through this period, I came across one recurring problem kind of over and over again, and that is the lack of quality training data. So at Neurolabs, we created a no-code platform that's aimed at making computer vision available for non-specialists, so for RPA developers, software engineers with no computer vision background. And we provide the trained computer vision algorithms that we train in virtual environments. We put together a simple interface where, as a user, you select your 3D models from a public catalog or from your own private catalog. And as an output, you get a data set of generated images in virtual environments. But on top of that, you also get state-of-the-art networks that are trained on that data set to the best of our ability. Mm-hmm. We integrate networks into multiple applications, both online and offline, and we also give you the weights and some wrap-up code in order to allow you as a user to embed it into your end application.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And I feel that really sounds helpful to data scientists. And I feel that a lot of data scientists sometimes they think about building some tools, but definitely not all people, they make this step towards building a company out of that. So were there any particular moment when you realized that you're ready to launch a startup? How did
actually? Yeah, it's a very good question. So we're not the classic example of I had a brilliant idea that can solve an end user problem and we started a startup. My co-founders and I, we came across each other in university, and then after about 10 years we came to a point in our lives where we were kind of fed up with our day-to-day jobs. One of us finished their second master's because you can never be overeducated, as Oscar Wilde puts it, right? And the other one had enough of his job in a bank. So we decided to start something in AI. We didn't really have the idea from the beginning, and we slowly went through the path of doing some small projects left and right up until we came with the idea of synthetic generated data for computer vision specifically. We all have a little bit of tangents with this topic in our background. For my experience particularly, I used to work as a computer vision engineer at Huddle in London. and we used to do player tracking for sports, specifically for football players. And I used to work in one room, and then in the recreation room, my colleagues were playing FIFA, and it really made sense. Why don't you just use FIFA as training data, and why do you have people labeling when you could just get that synthetic data out of there for free? Yeah, I hope that answers your question. There was no one particular moment when we said, this is it. Let's start doing it. It was very much a search and explore for us.
And by telling this story, you highlighted the very important point of ideation. So you said that there was kind of process, right, when you looked at multiple ideas. Can you recall, how do you filter them? When we definitely know that in the community right now, there are hundreds of people who have so-called pet projects, right? So they play with different things. How they can progress through these things, and how they can select something that is actually might become a potential startup for them. What was your approach, heuristic, or framework to do that?
I have many ideas here, and many ideas that looking back, they were wrong, but I'll share with you a couple of them. So at first, we looked at plain McKinsey reports as to where do we need to apply AI as a community in the next couple of years. And we came up with the retail sector as one of the most underserviced, but with highest payoff in the long run. So we started looking at use cases in the retail service as to how can we implement AI in there. And then we got to know a lot about the retail sector, but not necessarily about a good problem fit for our skills. So I wouldn't necessarily go down that route again. One thing that I learned during this journey is how to ask questions that give me insights and not questions that give me answers that I'm looking for. One great book for this is The Mom Test. I highly recommend that book. And for us, it was a little bit of a game changer, because we saw when we were doing some user interviews to figure out what was the problem that professionals in the retail sector had. We were influencing them into saying one thing or another that we actually wanted to hear, but we didn't actually came to the end of the to the conclusion and to the bottom of their problem. So I really recommend that book. Another thing that I would say comes as a natural step in this direction is going through an accelerator. So once you have an idea outlined, and once you have at least an MVP, you should look to go through an accelerator. We went through Fast Track Malmo. It was great. The people over there really put us on tracks, and really gave us the steam to keep the engine running. I would definitely recommend that route to everyone who's looking to start something new.
Mm-hmm. And when you were moving through this ideation, maybe, or filtering process, at that moment, were you guys already quit your jobs, or it was like weekends, nights, and then when you found the idea, you decided to leave your permanent, corporate jobs?
We took that quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger, plan B, there's no plan B. So we did quit our jobs, and we said, let's make the best of it. It aligned interests a lot more, because if you have some people with a job and some people being completely out of it, you're soon going to start to see some friction, just because someone moves at a much higher speed than the other person. So we were, at least two of us were unemployed at the time. The other one was finishing his PhD, so almost there. But we did go with no safety net.
I see. And can you also guide us a bit through the sequence of building stuff? Because people, especially engineers, they like building stuff. And then you need to probably try to get customers' feedback, maybe to start basic commercialization efforts, like to do a landing page or something like that. What was your sequence? How did you go through these commercial stages? Early commercial stages, obviously.
Sure. So I personally, I'm a strong believer thin slicing, start thin and go all the way down. Start with the minimum viable product and be diligent about what that means. Have a devil's advocate to look into every little thing that you put in your MVP and ask, does this really have to be in there? Is this really an MVP? Can we do without it? And if you can't, do without it. Don't try to be greedy from the beginning. Do a thin slice, put it in front of users, get their feedback, and build something they want, not something you think that they want. So that's one thing that I strongly suggest. Get something in front of users as fast as possible. When you ask for their feedback, make sure that you're not influencing them and you're actually getting what they really think about your product, not what you want them to think about your product. And work with that. Start building on that and keep going towards a product market fit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And to me, the interesting moment here is how to filter out some feedback that maybe is not relevant. I mean, how to find the balance between your vision as a founder and what potential customers want. What's your approach to that?
Sure. So if you look more, we put together a spectrum of end users. On one side, specifically in our case, on one side, you have the software engineers, the computer vision engineers, and on the other side, you have the enterprises. The more you go towards the enterprises, the more the customer will have one specific need that would feel like they're pushing you towards a consultancy project that is good for them and only for them. Mm-hmm. And the more you go towards a software engineer, the less the need for customization is, the more that they can do themselves, and all they need is this one little bit of software that works really well for one specific use case, and they'll build the rest. So striking the balance between the two, it's still something we're working on. We'd see as going from enterprise to solution providers, meaning companies who build software for enterprises, and they're already in there. And we come in as another piece of software in their offering. Then we go another level towards computer vision engineers, and right about in the middle, we look at RPA engineers as one user persona for us. So these are developers that are pretty skilled at putting code blocks together, but they don't necessarily program the code blocks themselves. So Neurolabs comes in and it's one of these code blocks as a part of the workflow of what I would call a business developer and a RPA developer in one, because most of these people have some understanding of the business. And right in between the RPA engineers and computer vision engineers, you have the software engineers who are very capable of writing software. They don't have the computer vision expertise. They take the Neurolabs network, they embed it into their work, and off they go. On the end of the spectrum, we do have the computer vision engineers who are very skilled in computer vision. They write the latest state-of-the-art architectures, and they change the networks themselves. So what can we do for these guys? Well, for these guys, we're providing data sets. For these guys, we're providing an extra level of data that it's pristine data. It's pixel perfect annotated, and it's a lot, basically. So it's a lot of data that they can use on top of their existing data sets in order to make a great product. This is our spectrum. This is how we defined it. It's different for everyone. In my experience, the more you go towards a problem that you solve, the more you have to build custom software. Whilst if you go a little bit more towards the other end of the spectrum, you have to do one thing really well, and you have to be one of the best people at doing that. So it's a trade-off between the two. Where your company lies, I guess it's up to you to decide.
And if we took a bit more abstract, maybe, look at the company and the role of founders, what's in general your approach to listening and advice? I'm sure a lot of potential investors or existing investors, they may say something like, go to that market, not to this one. implement these product changes, don't do these ones. I mean, it's like playing football. Everyone is an expert in football.
Everyone's a coach.
Or like a coach, yes. What's your approach to defining things that you as a founder or you as a founding team are not moving from, and you just stick to them?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I wish I had 3 bullet point answers for you.
We can speculate together.
The truth is that we all gave up our comfortable lives in our little cushion in London to do something that we like, and that is to implement a AI solution in the real world. So it sees the daylight. We don't want to get diverge from that too much. So we don't want to go too much into building something custom for the enterprise. And that's one thing, when we had conversation with investors who said, oh, but you actually have some traction in the retail sector, you should double down on that and just grow a company out of it. And it didn't feel right for us. It could be great as for a company, but just not for us as 3 founders who started up looking a little bit more at the computer vision engineer end of the spectrum in our analogy. So that's one of the things. We also are quite strong believers in remote culture, not necessarily fully remote, but today we have 2 offices, one in Edinburgh, one in Cluj in Romania. And we are a believer that this is something that can work for the future. You do have one office that you belong to. You go there maybe 2 days a week or something like that. Now with the pandemic, it might be even less, right? But you have the freedom to operate on your own, and you have enough guidance if needed by going into an office and talking to people face to face and having that water cooler chat that sparks ideas when necessary. We're believers in get smart people next to you, smarter than you all the time. And if you put them there and let them operate autonomously, they will provide you with great input and with great work. You just need to set the table for them. So I guess these 2 are a couple of the things that we guided our journey so far along. And we looked for investors who understand them and are behind them. And we don't feel that they're that outlandish. So we're good with those.
Awesome. I think you mentioned very important point, very important theme, the team, the culture. Can you just add a bit more background on your co-founders? There are 3 of you, right? And as far as I remember, you're all quite technical guys, but can you give some details here?
Yeah. So the 3 of us are coming from Edinburgh University. That's where we met. We all done computer science, mathematics, and physics, and a mix of the 3. My 2 co-founders worked in banks, JP Morgan and Bank of America in London. Again, technical roles, some maths and statistics, and some software engineering. So as a founding team, we're very technical, and one might say we lack on the business side. So that was a challenge for us from the beginning to have that business mindset and have step away from your keyboard and your dev environment and figure out if you're actually solving a problem or you're coding because you have this one idea that should work, but it's not validated by the real world. So for us, it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. I think it still is as we grow, but we're managing it better and better with the type of talent that we get as an addition to the team, and the type of people that we get to complement our skill set.
And how did you overcome this challenge at the very early stage when there were just 3 of you and you need to get this first talks with customers, first interviews? What was your approach? Like sending emails, going to events? What was your favorite and the most efficient way to get this initial commercial conversation going, given that you had and still have this wonderful technical background that maybe not directly business one, right?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what we've done and I don't like it before going into the things that we've done right. Because we've done quite a lot, honestly, quite a lot of things that were suboptimal. So you had the three of us doing a little bit of the tech part, the three of us doing a little bit of the business, a little bit of the networking, a little bit of strategy. And it's normal in the beginning. I think it's normal in the beginning of the company, of the first few stages. But then you should specialize quite fast. You should look at being very good on one particular thing. And even if your expertise is not really aligned to that, one of the co-founders needs to be the business person. They just need to assume it. There's no way around it. I don't think there's a silver bullet that can solve it. One of the co-founders needs to assume it and look at how to monetize the whole thing. Look at what are the customers saying, how do you get their feedback, how do you keep them happy, and how do you build a relationship, a lasting relationship with them. It took us quite a while. That's the reason I'm dwelling a little bit on the subject. It took us quite a while until we separated the roles clearly enough. On paper, we did it probably from day one, but in practice, it didn't really happen that way. So we took a long time before we decided that, okay, now you consciously put down the MacBook and stop coding and you go talk with a customer, or you go to that conference, or you have that presentation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if I got you right, the idea is that you need to specialize within your team, even if your backgrounds initially are more or less similar. You still need to specialize, and you need to train and increase your expertise in the field where you lack it, right? In your case, the business stuff, commercial things.
Yeah. I think that's something that we should have done better, and that's something that most companies that have technical background should think of in the beginning. Mm-hmm. For sure, you benefit from hiring someone early with complementary skills. However, if they're not a co-founder, I don't think they can make up for it. Mm-hmm. I strongly believe that one of the co-founders needs to have that responsibility from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And from what I see as an investor and what I hear from other founders and investors, it's critical to have someone among the co-founders on the commercial side, because it allows a better insight into product, into customers' heads, and a hired salesperson may not have this incentive. They really, even if it might be an amazing salesperson, they have different incentives and different motivations basically than the co-founders. So I would say what I know and what I hear is very adjacent and aligned to what you guys doing.
Why do you think that's the case?
I guess it's the case because for a co-founder, the urge and the desire to know about the product, about the customer, is actually a natural thing. That is why you are doing what you are doing. And the salesperson, even an amazing one, he or she has some technical skills to sell the product. And that's what they like to do, I guess. Maybe there is some cases when a salesperson is particularly motivated and interested in a certain type of products. They love that, and maybe they can partially take over the function of insight and digging deeper into customers' needs, products, etc. But I would say that's an exception. It's just different types of work, different types of motivations. And when a founder wants to dive deeper into customer needs and into a product part, then the sales activity, the commercial activity is an amazing way to dive deeper. So that's my opinion. And
that's an interesting take. Yeah. Do you think that you could align the interests of, say, the third or fourth employee with the co-founders? I mean, of course, you would give away some equity. Of course, you would give away a good financial package.
Yeah.
But do you think that you could align the interest and the motivation in some one way or another?
If there is a case of very careful selection, not selection in the sense that there are bad people and good people, just you need a certain type of person who loves what you do. I guess that's possible because sometimes even there are people like late co-founders who join a company later and they deserve more than 1.5 or 1% of the stock. So I see that happens, but that is an exception. I see probably I see more opposite cases when, especially in the commercial part, startups hire very early they hire salespeople and it doesn't work because really this route of customer development, the route of exploring customers needs, it's not ended yet, and a person who is hired as a salesperson is just not doing that. So there is disalignment. But I guess with careful selection, slow process, that's doable. I've seen a couple of examples like that. And since we started to talk about investors, how did it work out for you guys? How did you find your first investors, if I may ask, if it's not a secret?
It's no longer a secret. It's on Crunchbase right now. So the very first investor was an angel investor. Then we had the accelerator that invested in us, and alongside came another angel investor. And roughly a year after, we started going after VCs. We picked up 1-2 angel investors on the way. We tried to optimize for smart money, so people who are an advisor as well as an investor, or they open up some doors for us into strategic places. And this year in February, March, we were supposed to wrap up our round, and then the lockdown came. It was a little bit of a setback for us, but by that time we already had a lead investor in Lunar Ventures from Berlin. It was a little bit of a setback, as I said, because the other investors in the round were a little bit hesitant at the time, and we postponed the round closing up until June, which turned out to be early July. And we ended up having 2 other VCs coming along, 7% from London, Techstart from Edinburgh and Northern Ireland, and also ID4, a fund between London and Paris, and alongside 2 other angel investors. So for us, it was good to take a breather, let the dust settle a little bit, and then can come up with a stronger round. But we did go through some rough patches in March and April when there was a lot of uncertainty. We knew we had a lead investor, but we didn't know exactly what we wanted to close anymore. Was it a 12-month runway, 18 months, 24? It was very, very uncertain at the time. And also, what type of burn do you want to have? Do you want to hire more people? Do you want to stick with the same team? A lot of questions that had to be answered, and the answer was give it some time to settle, and then you come up with a better strategy. I think we're in a great position right now, and we managed to sail the waters happily. It did cause a lot of gray hair for a few of us, but it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, it ended well. At least it achieved an important milestone. It's obviously not ended yet. So I'm curious, these first angel investors, where they come from? Where did they come from? Is it your personal network, your ex-colleagues, maybe through university? What was the network where they came from? Where our community members should look at to find those first ones?
That's a good question. So for us, it was not our immediate network, but the extended network. So we didn't know these people from the get-go. Actually, one of them we did, but the rest of them came from people who knew that we're starting something and said, oh, I have this one friend that might be interested. We got in touch and we clicked, and from that point on, we came together as a team. Also, through the accelerator, we got to meet a lot of people, a lot of VCs and a lot of angel investors. I will make an emphasis on that. Go to an accelerator if you can, because it really changes the way your company will develop in the future. I think VCs, all of them have one or two favorite professional angel investors, if you wish, alongside them, who are putting tickets that are significant, and also they're putting a lot of tickets in the market as well.
Yeah, I see. And just being cautious about your time, probably just two other questions before we close. We talked about many different things, but maybe I did miss something important. So maybe you want to tell about something else that I didn't ask. If there is anything else, any theme, any question, what could it be?
I think technically we can talk a little bit more in depth. So one problem that we faced as a company was fundraising on a technical product that it's not a one-liner. It's not Shopify for schools or something that you can just make it catchy and explainable in one line. So we had quite a technical product that targets a particular technology, computer vision in this case, a subset of computer runway. So what we as a challenge was, how do you explain this to investors? How do you put it in a pitch nicely? It didn't help that we all had technical backgrounds and none of us worked in television before, and we struggled mightily with this part.
And how did you solve it?
I don't know if we solved it yet.
Did you make just not a technical pitch, or did you decide to target technical investors instead? Not waste your time on explaining that to someone who doesn't know about synthetic data, but just target specific investors? What was your solution?
So we got some piece of advice in the beginning that raising funds from a VC, it's a numbers game. I disagree with that advice. I disagreed at the time, still disagree now, but in practice what we ended up doing was contact a lot of VCs that weren't necessarily looking for investments in our area. So I do believe that would, what you just said would be a great solution to the problem. Target VCs who are looking at deep tech investments. You don't need to target 100 of them. Go for maybe 10, 20, but know them by heart, know them what they invest in, what they believe in. Why would you be a fit for investment? And also keep in mind that they're going to be with you for 5, 7, 10 years. It needs to be a match between you and the VCs. So the last thing you want to do is throw away some proposals and just pick randomly one of the VCs who actually wants to invest in you. So be mindful of the people that you're targeting. Sometimes the pattern of 12 slides is not the best for you. When you come to the problem slide, it takes a little more than a sentence to explain it. So find the people who understand that, and don't waste your time with those that don't really look into that.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that. I guess we are all, investors including, and founders also, sometimes we downplay the essence of the problem. We focus on the solution and we skip the problem part. But the point is that for many people around us, the problem is not as obvious as for us. For you, synthetic data, the challenge of getting data, annotating, etc., it's an obvious problem. For somebody else, it's not. So it's too early to talk about solution. Probably we can start from talking about the problem itself. That's,
Yeah,
that's a very nice comment. And the last question from me would be a single piece of advice for a data scientist. Imagine someone sits right now, maybe with Google, Facebook, or maybe in some research university, and plays with a pet project. What would be the single piece of advice you can share?
For their pet project or for the data scientists themselves?
If they want to launch a startup, what they should do?
Okay, good question. So I think as a data scientist, you need to have a mindset of a software engineer first, if that makes sense. There are a lot of tools right now that are on the market, and it's very, very, very hard to keep up with all of them. But the last thing you want to do is reinvent the wheel and build something that someone started 2-3 years ago, and it's quite far down the product market fit path if they haven't got there first. So think as a software engineer and try to solve the problem as if you didn't know anything about data science and you were looking to pick tools off the shelf. Mm-hmm. If you can't find that, then it might be that you're getting to the right time, or it might be that the problem is not there yet for the larger market. It's very tricky to think as a software engineer, as a data scientist, and as a business person at the same time. I think you need to put another hat on and try to validate that what you're solving is a problem for a big number of people. Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? 1 million? It's hard to gauge, but try to get the order of magnitude fast. And once you've got that, you multiply it with what's it worth for every person that you're solving that problem for. And that gives you an answer if you should spend the next 5-7 years of your life building that product or not, I guess.
Got it. That's very interesting and useful advice, I will say. Thank you, Paul, once again. I'm sure we will hear a lot of good news from Neurolabs, and I'm sure we will hear a lot of positive feedback from data engineers and data scientists who are using or will use your tools. That's really cool that you help them all to move faster.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Peter. One thing I would like to add, we do have a private alpha coming up. So if we have some interesting listeners, people who want to have a go at object recognition using synthetic data, give us a shout, Neurolabs.eu, and we'll get you on a private alpha. We'll really appreciate some feedback and some word of advice as to where to take our product next.
Amazing. Cool. We'll highlight that as well. Thank you, Paul.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Peter.